Hey everybody, today I'm talking about my top 10 new to me games I played in 2021. So actually only one of these games came out in 2021 and the rest of them are from years past and years gone by, but I hadn't had an opportunity to play them until this year. And of course these are my 10 favourite ones and the best games I've played this year. So I did quite a hard cut-off this year, starting in January and, until today's date at the end of December. So unfortunately, I think a couple of games were a bit unfortunate where I played them in December, or right at the end of December, which weren't really eligible for the list. So in particular, I'm talking about Praga Caput Renyi, which if I played it a few days later, it would have made the list quite high up, but just take that into consideration. But before we get into the list, I just want to give a shout out to Kienda.co.uk, who sponsor the show and are my go-to online retailer in the UK, so be sure to check them out if you regularly buy board games and you want some great prices. But let's get started on the list. So at number 10, I have Pulsar 2849. So this is different for me because I very rarely play sci-fi games, but this one is a real point salad-y dice drafting style game with some pretty cool mechanisms, and particularly this dice drafting system where depending on the value you take, it really moves this needle or moves these markers down, which affects initiative order but can potentially cost you some additional resources, where if you were a bit more maybe a bit more forgiving and didn't always take the higher numbers. I really think that system is wonderful and I've never seen it used before, but I love the way they use these dice as well. You're using them to travel around the map and explore these different planets, and you're getting new technologies, you're upgrading your own player board to give you powers. What a brilliant and satisfying little puzzle this one is. It really does feel like you're showered in points to do whatever you do. You've got so many options to explore, and it just feels like a really fun game to play, and completely transcends the sci-fi thing, which is normally a big turn-off for me. But Vladimir Suchý this year has been an absolute kind of standout for me, and I've really started to dig into his games, and Pulsar 2849 has been a real kind of pillar and cornerstone to the foundation of his great game. So this one is brilliant. Haven't even slightly got tired of this one. So much variability. Again, if you like that point salad thing and you like dice-driven Euros, then this one is up there with the best of them. So that is Pulsar 2849. At number 9, I have Terra Mystica. So yeah, I know this one, believe it or not, I hadn't played it until the year 2021, despite being immensely popular and obviously massively revered in the Euro strategy space. This one is almost like an engine building style game, as you are upgrading your player board by putting buildings onto the main map. But in order to do that, you have to kind of terraform the land and change it so that you can kind of inhabit that particular land. And all these different races, which you'll control throughout the games you play, all have their own different terrains. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. You're climbing tracks. You are, again, I love that idea of upgrading your player board, where if you remove something, then you are giving more and more abilities to yourself, giving yourself more income, and also, of course, increasing your dominance on the board, building bigger civilizations, building bigger networks. And I think this game is brilliant. It's a great pacing to it as well, where you want to be doing certain things in certain times and certain rounds in the game. And a game that I think requires and rewards repeated plays to really understand the nuances and qualities of the game. But this is a real rich experience, which I've basically scratched the surface of, and I still enjoy it that much. So that is Terra Mystica at number 9. At number 8, I have Hansa Teutonica. So Hansa Teutonica, a very simple route building game by Andreas Stedding, as you are trying to take actions to fill up these different spots, which are these routes between the different cities. And once you fill them up, you can claim these different cities as your own, which means that when people fill up those routes again, you can start generating points. Additionally, you can go to particular spots to build your engine up, which will either make you take more actions, or when you kind of need a refresh of action cubes, then you can take more of them, or even take all of them. So you're constantly becoming more efficient in this game, getting more points by upgrading things. So yeah, I really do love this clean, precise engine building engine that this game offers. A real cutthroat game, nice play interaction, but it doesn't feel nasty for the sake of it. So sometimes you want to block people's routes off because they might have to invest to move you out of the way, and not only do they have to spend the effort to do that, but the person who's being moved gets a bit of a benefit and gets to kind of spawn off quicker and start to claim new land at a quicker rate. So you're incentivized to interfere with the other players, but not to a point where it's kind of can rub players the wrong way. I love the feel of this game. It feels unique. It feels clean in its mechanisms. Very little rules overhead. Just a few very clean actions you can take, but within those actions there is a whole ocean of depth and options to go for. Brilliant design. That is Hansa Teutonica. At number 7, I have Tinner's Trail. This is the only game that actually came out in 2021, and it is a reprint from a Martin Wallace classic. This one is a game where you are auctioning for these different mines to get the minerals within those mines. You get your irons and your tin, I suppose, and then you are, or is it copper and tin? I don't know. And then you are basically trying to get those and sell those when the market's hot, and then convert those points, that money into points. But the earlier you do that, the more better returns you get for those points. And that for me is one of my favourite scoring systems. I think it's brilliantly done. I love this speculation on. Sometimes you're bidding for these mines, you don't know what's going to be inside. Is it going to be very rich in its resources, or is it going to be completely flooded? And if things have a lot of water in them, it just means there's a lot more, it costs a lot more to extract the metal from that mine. And then you have to start investing in pumps and things to clear that water out. Works so well. I think this one has some really cool thematic ties, and I'm always impressed with how Martin Wallace kind of makes things logical while still feeling fun, economic, and just completely smooth. I think this game is brilliant. That is Tinner's Trail at number 7. At number 6, I have Underwater Cities. So we've already talked about Vladimir Sukin and how much I've been enjoying him, and Underwater Cities is another big reason for that. Now, I always consider Underwater Cities one of the quintessential engine building games now. This one has pretty much any concept of engine building you could imagine. You're getting upgrades, you're making yourself more efficient, making yourself more, or just generating points in different ways, just different cards you can use that are unique to yourself. Everything you can imagine that kind of constitutes engine building, this game offers, which I think is brilliant, and offers a real kind of unique experience each time you play, depending on the cards you acquire. But I like this clean worker placement system where when you take a spot and you pair it with an action card of a matching colour and get both of those abilities, and that's a really cool, satisfying income as the game goes on. Again, I love that kind of little map you're building, different upgrades you're getting, generating income and generating a points engine as the game goes on. So many different cards in this game. You'll never play the same game twice, and I think it's an absolute brilliant design. So that is Underwater Cities at number 6. At number 5, I have one of the lightest games on this list. This is Capital Lux 2 Generations. So this is a very modular, card-driven game, as you are trying to collect points by not only playing them in front of you, but also considering playing cards in the capital, which is kind of a communal pool of cards. Because the cards that are played in front of you have to be under or equal to the matching cards in the capital as well. And if you go over, you're going to go bust, just like a game of blackjack. So it's a really cool thing where the capital is always kind of being manipulated and played with by the other players. Sometimes cards are going in, sometimes cards are coming out. You have to consider what your opponents are doing, because they might do some of the hard work for you by putting cards into the city, which means that you can start putting cards in front of you to score them as points. A brilliant design, one of the best hand management games I've played, just constantly dynamic. I love how variable this game is, because each game you can have a different setup, and because all the different colours of the cards have different abilities to them. So when you play in that capital, you get a unique ability, which might be collecting coins, which will give you points. It could be taking cards from the capital. It could be putting these markers on them, which can manipulate the board state, which only you know and not the other players do. Just one of the best, most precise and just genius card games I've ever seen, to be honest. This one blows my mind how well this design is, and I find it fascinating. So that is Capital Lux 2 Generations at number 5. At number 4, I have another pretty light game and a strictly 2-player game with Mandala. So Mandala really did hit me by surprise this year. I heard good things about it, but I wasn't expecting how good this game is. So this is, as I said, a 2-player game, as you're playing cards on this mat, and you're playing them in different regions. So I think there's 3 different areas. One is going to be the area in which you're going to bid for the cards, and one is going to be the kind of pool in which you are going to be bidding for. But when you play these cards in the middle, then that's going to be your only option to acquire new cards into your hands. You have to be very careful about how you do that. But additionally, when you start collecting these cards, you're going to start putting them in order in the colour you collect them in. Starting from the lowest, only kind of getting 1 point per card of that type, and going all the way up to, I believe, 6 points per card of that type. But because you've collected them in that particular order, it doesn't mean that your opponent are collecting them in the same order either. So sometimes cards that are worth a lot to me won't be worth much to my opponent, and you have to use that to your advantage. So using high-powered cards to your opponent as currency to bid for your cards is quite a good strategy to take. So many layers in this game. It's a game that keeps on giving. Maybe at first all the nuances, the sophistication of the game doesn't quite shine through as strongly as it does after several plays. But this one, when that trigger flicks and that penny drops, this game is as good as it gets. A fantastic game. It feels elegant, it's smooth, and it almost feels like a game from a bygone era. I'm never going to get tired of this game. It is that good. That is Mandala at number 4. At number 3, I have Keyflower. Keyflower is a bidding and worker placement style game, as you're collecting these tiles by using meeples, and you've got meeples of different colours, and basically the colours of those meeples aren't assigned to particular players. So, I might have some blue meeples, this player over here will have blue meeples, and so on. So yeah, these players aren't particularly locked into a colour. But once you choose to bid for a tile with a particular colour of meeple, it's locked into that colour for all the other players, which means that they can only compete using that colour. So you have to use that to your advantage. And I love the free-flowing economy of this game where even if you bid for these tiles, people can still use those tiles to get the benefit from them. And then if they win the bid, they get all the meeples on them to use in future rounds. And as the game goes on, you're starting to build this little town of tiles up, which you can use for yourself, which means that you get those meeples back. But also you can use the tiles of other players to get the benefits, which is great. But bearing in mind that you'll be giving them your meeples to use against you in future rounds. What a brilliant level of interaction this has. I think this gives a brilliant design, so clever. And yeah, in terms of a game that scales well, no matter what player count you play this at, it's fantastic. Great kind of positive interaction with loads of meaning behind your decisions, loads of ways to score points. This one is one of the best worker placement games I've ever played. Fantastic. That is Keyflower at number 3. At number 2, I have my second Martin Wallace game with Brass Birmingham. So yeah, I hadn't played Brass Birmingham until this year, but by God, I'm glad I finally got there. So this game is a pretty involved economic style game as you are building up a network of trains, or I believe it's canals as well, and then you are trying to shift resources from these tiles or build up these chains of resources in order to upgrade your buildings to start generating a points engine. And I love the kind of the free markets in this game and how that supply and demand works, where if you can build these chains to the particular resources, you can start getting money. You can use other players' resources, but bearing in mind you could be helping them from doing so. It is so clever. There is a lot going on here, more than I could summarize in a few seconds, like this snippet. But this game has probably one of the biggest followings and biggest hype trains behind it, no pun intended. But when a game has that level of hype and I get to the table and I think, yeah, this deserves it, that's, it's rare for me that happens. And Brass Birmingham is one of those games that achieved that. And again, I'm not very good at this game. I'm still scratching the surface of it. But what it offers is just mind-blowing to me. So many things to try. Loads of decisions on how you're going to manage your hand of cards, when you're going to do things, how you're going to manage your resources, what you're going to invest in. Brilliant design. Absolutely phenomenal. That is Brass Birmingham at number 2. And finally, the best game I played this year was Barrage. So Barrage, ironically, I played right at the start of the year, and it maintained that number 1 spot the year through. So this one is another economic style game. This one's pretty involved, has some worker placement in it, but I wouldn't say worker placement was the main focus of this game. It really is how that game map, the board, or how it works, and how you're going to utilize the current board state, how you're going to cut other players off, and how you're going to capitalize on opportunities that become available. So this is a game about converting water into energy and ultimately trying to get points. But this has a kind of a very logical way the map works, as the board is basically a mountainscape with all these different kind of basins of water, and every round a number of these raindrops or water drops are going to fall and flow down the mountain. However, you want to be making sure that you're building these dams so that you can capture that water and convert that water through conduits into power stations. And this is where the interaction comes in, because somebody might build, say, a dam down here and capture all the water, but then I might decide, you know what, I'm going to invest in building a dam further up the mountain and capture that water before it gets to this player. And so it's pretty cutthroat, it's very in your face, and you have to be a bit of a shark in order to be good at this game. But I've never really played a game like this. It is so different to anything else out there. I love the resource management in this game, as you are using all these different kind of machinery to build new dams, to build new conduits and power stations. However, when you build them, those resources are tied up for a certain amount of time, and you don't just spend them back to the common supply. They're tied up on this wheel, which over time will rotate and eventually come back to you, meaning that you can start building new stuff again. So there's a whole new dimension of time management in this game as well, which just blows my mind. So without gushing about this game too much, it's my number one, and this one did extremely well in my top 50 games of all time. If you want to check that out, this one came in the top 10, so go check that out if you want to hear me gush about this game even more. But one of the best games I've ever played. I love it when games are different and unique, and Barrage certainly is that. So that concludes this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed talking about these games because they are just shining stars, in a massive sea of games, and these ones are big standouts. So if you have enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. Additionally, I do have a Patreon page, so be sure to visit that if you want to take that extra step to support the channel, and be sure to check out kienda.co.uk for some great deals on board games. And for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.